Welcome to Green is Nice YouTube channel. In this series we will be delving a little bit deeper into the HZ GTS named Lucy. Well, we're back in the shed. Weather's cooled off. A few change of plans with Lucy. Was going to put the old turbo set back on and have a bit of a play around with that, but after a fair bit of thought and longevity of the motor, those 304s just can't cop the power. Anytime you get around that 650, they seem to break the webbing out of the block just on the main journals. So right here mounted on the stand, we've got our mighty LS. It's an iron block LS. They're just such a magic built engine. Firstly, one of the biggest reasons I've gone to the LS is GM made them with a skirted block. So the block comes down past the center line of the crank. So on like the 304, the crank is actually level to the bottom face of the block. So that, in all intents, gives you a much more rigid bottom end. On top of that, we got a 4-bolt main, which is, the bolts are here, there, right there, 1, 2, and then 3 and 4. Plus it's got the extra in from the side, which gives them, technically it's a 6-bolt, 4 main cap bolts and the 2 from the sides that bolt into that skirt. They're such a strong, rigid block. Unreal for the way they're set up. They've got roller lifters, all factory fitted. Their oil control system, they're nearly all O-ring. They're just such a superior built engine. I've gone to that. The reason is 650 wasn't going to be enough. I've decided I'm going to set it up and do some dyno comp stuff. So I'm honestly looking at up to about 1700 at the tyres. So this little block here has to be able to produce around the 2000 horsepower. Definitely not 300 horsepower, that's where I was getting that thought from. 300 horsepower is going to be wasted in supercharger driving because we're going to a set of 2 Pro Chargers. They're actually a pretty rare Pro Charger. They're a Vortex style, so they're very similar made to the Vortex, but they're made in the Pro Charger factory. Got a pair of them. From the top end down, we're going to run 2 chargers on the front into a Y-piece into the manifold. Manifold is a Holly low ram for bonnet clearance. In that, it's going to have a sandwich style intercooler. Coming down from that, we're going to run a set of 8 80-pound and 8 100-pound injectors. Going to run E85. Got to run big fuel lines, big pumps obviously. 2 new race cells going in the boot. Then coming from there down onto the cylinder heads. Cylinder heads are a set of Dart. They run a huge port, big valves. The valves are just on 2.3 inch on the inlet. They're just a monstrous thing. Can't fit any bigger valve in the bore size. It should actually be a 7 litre of 427, but I've actually pulled it back from that size. I don't want to have too thin of bores just because the stress loads are going to be under. So it actually works out at 6.66 litres, which is a bit of an ironic number considering Lucy's name is Lucifer. That's where she got a name from, because she was always the devil, so she's a female devil, Lucy. Pistons, set of JE, they're a Wiseco. They're a Wiseco piston. Made by JE. They're a set of 2618 casting. That's your lowest silicon content casting they do for forged pistons. They're a little bit temperamental on street engines because they expand greatly, which means you need to run really big piston to ball clearance, so it's going to rattle when it starts. You need to be aware that you can't just jump in and shoot down the shop and buy a Coke, because you've got to let it warm up fully through a full heat cycle before you start driving them. That's okay, because Lucy's not a daily driver, it's a rare driver. So he'll be happy at that, just something we've got to be mindful of. Conrod's went to, after a lot of checking into stuff, settled down on a set of, they're a K1 technology. Now there's a few different types of K1 technologies, also under the JE group, which again is Wiseco. The box actually comes with Wiseco written on it. They're a H-beam. I bought the dearer set, the stronger set, which runs a set of 2000 ARP rod bolts. Onto the crank, I've had a few sort of ups and downs in cranks, but I'm actually going to a Kelly's LSA style, the one with they got 8 bolts instead of 6 on the back. They come factory with the keyway for the drive for the superchargers. So gone to that, so it's a complete billet bottom end. The only thing that we're retaining off a factory engine is the block. Into the center we've got a camshaft, gone to a Brian Tooley Racing, the BTR stage 5. It's about 240 degrees duration at 50 lift on the inlet, so it's quite a big cam. I think it's a LSA's around 112, I think. The reason I'm going to such a big cam, it's normally for naturally aspirated stuff, that's what they're designed for, but pretty much the going theory is, if you're to build an engine that produces its maximum amount of NA horsepower, then add your boost, you add less boost and you get a higher gain. So you could run smaller cam, you need to add a lot of boost. So with this, we're going for big flow, big head ports, big valves, big duration. All the big comes into the fact that less boost and the same horsepower. To get it over the line, I don't know where we're going to run out until we actually run it. All the theories and all the mathematical equations I can do still doesn't show me the full end result till it hits the dyno. But not scared to hit it with a shot of gas, like 6, even up 7, even up to 800, whatever it's got to take. The bottom end will handle it up to that point. Lifters, haven't decided on them yet. There's a few different brands I'm looking at. The valve springs, they're all Brian Tooley Racing. They're actually still on the slow boat from America coming over. They're a titanium retained dual valve spring. Got a fair bit of lift. The rest of it sort of neither here nor there, but like I was saying, the weather's cooled down now, so it's time for me to get back into the shed. Not a comfortable place to be in this shed through summer. We get 40-degree outside temperatures and quite often get over the 60-degree temperatures in the shed. Nice cool days at the moment, so into doing more of the build. Today I will be going through gapping rings. Lovely job, especially when you're blind. Little ring gapping machine down here. Well, little setup. Screwdriver can live on the floor for a bit. Gap the rings, then to each ball. Then I'll probably go on to doing some deburring. I'll actually deburr first, so doing all the castings, marks, that sort of stuff. So give it a deburr with my Azito power file. It's a little belt sander, hand belt sander. Great little unit actually. They're only worth $50 or something, and they do a great job. So I'll go through and do a full deburr on every part of it. Then we'll go on to gapping the rings, and then last we'll be going on to setting up ready to do the O-ring of the block. So back on this top edge again, got to put an O-ring, copper O-ring, got to cut grooves in around here. I bought the unit from Iskandarian race cams in America there, Iski. They make really good gear. That's the box there, and it's just, we'll get onto it later. It's a pretty simple but effective tool for cutting that O-ring. Righto, looks like I've got to grab the power file and start filing. Well, that's been a bit of an effort, but looks like as it stands now, I've got it deburred. Yeah. Fingers get really sore and damaged because you've got to run your fingers over everything. Everything, doesn't matter what it is. Whether you're cooking, whether you're building an engine, use your fingers all the time, like I say. Your hands, your fingers, and now your eyes. But I'm pretty happy with that. Big job, but worth the effort. Righto, I think we're on to doing another long, boring job. That's gapping rings. So I'll bring you back in and we'll go through a bit of a brief rundown on how Blind Engine Builder gaps rings. Gonna go pretty big on this ring gap. As I said, we're not playing around with horsepowers. We're gonna try to get a fair bit. So we need big ring gap. Not gonna run overly big boost. Big volume of airflow from the two superchargers, but in the end we need ring gap. So I'm going out to that 30 thou mark on both top and bottom. Doesn't matter if we're losing a bit of compression, we got a compression via a belt. So we'll grab and find where these feeler gauges are. One of the ring boxes. Righto. There's a piston. It's always the trick when you're working blind to locate all your gear before you start. There it is, right in front of my eyes. Should have opened them, I guess. Okie doke. I've got one top ring here. I'll start in pot, where are we? That's the front, that's pot 8. So we'll gently spiral that in without breaking a ring. I use, this is one of the old pistons, one of the hypertactics out of it. Use 2 wrist pins through it. It gives me a nice level surface to put the ring down in. Now a bit of a trick, I've got to line up where we are. I think that's it. Now somewhere there we go. Push the ring into the bore. I tap it, I know it's down. Pull that piston out. I'll feel it with my fingernail now. Now I know roughly my fingernail is about 14 thou. We got nothing there, so probably 1 or 2 thou, I guess. So I'll pull him back out. Bring him back in here onto the ring grinder. Give you some twirls. I've roughly worked out that it's going to take about 450 per side of ring, so around the 900 turns of the crank to bring it down, bring it out to that 30 thou gap. It's a bit tricky for me. I've got to make sure that I'm up against the stops, I'm square, I'm not distorting the ring so that we're getting a parallel edge on the two. Tell you, it was a lot easier when I had sight, but not giving up. I'm going to give this a crack. I've built a few engines since I've had no sight, or minimal sight. And I'll flip over. Something I've got to watch here is that I don't break the ring by hooking it onto the dowels or something there. I've had a couple of what I'd call close calls where I've pulled it back, not in a straight line, but that's the treacheries of being a blind engine builder, I guess. So we just keep doing this for quite a length of time. I won't bore you with the whole lot. I'll do a couple of more cycles here to show you roughly how I'm doing it. And then I'll just sit here all by myself, turning the handle. I'll periodically check it. I always make sure I'm going to check it now. I just roll the ring just a little bit against the face of the cutting stone. Same back on the other side. Fine back, there we are, we're back in. I do a couple of turns and then just roll to the front edge. Just want to take that sharp edge off that ring so I'm not cutting into the bore badly. I'm pretty sure that the con rods are going to do a big enough job when the pistons fall to bits of that, so we'll leave the rings without a sharp edge, so it's only the con rods that do the damage. Righto, get this back into where we're going to be, and yeah, got a winner. That was a pretty easy one that time. Righto, bump bump, I know both wrist pins are down. I'll then feel that edge and make sure that parallel across, and I'll do the old fingernail trick. Okay, so we got I reckon somewhere around the 10th hour. I measured, I reckon we're pretty close to that, but a fair bit more to go. So I'll let you off the hook on watching the whole lot of that, and I'll bring you back in again shortly. Well, here we go. This is the second ring on the last cylinder. I've gapped all the rest from 1 through to 8. Top compression ring onto the bottom compression ring. Gapped them all at 30 thou. A few more turns of the handle here. Got about 3 thou to go, so it's not much. These rings are softer than the tops. Easier to grind, faster to grind. I'll just roll it around now and clean that front corner up so I don't scratch the bores. Don't want to be scratching the bores because I want to leave them nice and clean for those con rods for when the pistons fall to bits. Just want the con rods and gudgeon pins to do the damage, not the rings. Righto, feel on them, yeah, they're good. A little bit of a sharp edge there. I'll just give it a quick clean on that very edge. And same on that side. fit. So that's number 2, number 4, 6 and 8. There we go, line up those rings close to being parallel. Bring the piston in. Got pretty good at doing this now. Righto, I can feel that gap there now. Also worked out to put my feeler gauges back in the exact same spot and don't move. Find where our gap is. I'll slide it around until I feel the leading edge of the gap. There we are, up that way a little. Righto. Just check it and pull them out of parallel. They're pretty good. So there we go. 30 thou gap into the rings, both top and bottom.